Hi, I'm Matt Pierce, and we're back with 24 and 24 for Camtasia. I'm here with Jess Knott, our new instructional designer here at TechSmith, formerly from MSU. And we're going to be talking about sketch motion callouts. Jess, why don't you take a second? I know you were here for when we did Snag It 24 and 24. Why don't you introduce yourself real quickly?
I keep forgetting to tell people I work at TechSmith because I worked at MSU for 11 years. But yeah, I've been here for 5 weeks now. And my background is in educational technology and basic IT, I guess. So nothing really exciting.
But you also do a lot of stuff in the community. You're actually wearing your roller derby shirt. So.
Yes, I'm a derby vixen.
That's awesome. So a little promotion for the community there. In terms of Camtasia Studio, prior to coming to TechSmith, were you a user?
I was a user, and so was every faculty member I worked with. Basically, it's a really good way to get video into your class or capture lectures without a ton of work. I know that whenever I was asked to sit in front of the video production computer, I got a little sweaty, a little twitchy. So I just did everything in Camtasia, and it worked really well.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about sketch motion callouts. That's a topic that you wanted to talk about with us today. We got a real early preview for anyone that watched at 8 o'clock this morning with Shane here. But why don't you kind of explain what are sketch motion callouts?
Sketch motion callouts are animated, which is why I like them. I think I had Camtasia 7 for about 2 hours before it completely changed the way I thought about storyboarding. And one of the nice things about sketch motion callouts is it's a way to add motion and attention without being either to static slide type things and also without just being over the top. So a lot of the stuff I do is basic, PowerPoint, getting information out there, and while you have the animated information that comes in on PowerPoint, sketch motion callouts just add a little bit more.
So it's a more dynamic way of drawing attention to whatever you're trying to highlight.
Yes.
Okay, great.
You're really good at saying stuff. You make stuff sound smart. Yes, it's dynamic.
It's dynamic, yes.
I'll use it because it's dynamic. So anyway, I've just got the, basic, everybody gets to see it, Camtasia Studio 7 screencast here. And what I would do is the first time you install Camtasia Studio 7, just break this thing. Try everything new out on it because it's not, you can try anything and it's very low risk. So I've broken this, 1,002 times by now. Just trying new things and seeing what happens.
And by breaking it, you mean the project. Go in
the project,
and play,
yeah.
Play with the project that's installed.
Yeah,
with it.
and then I'm like, how did I do that? And then I go read through some of the tutorials in the Learning Center. And I find that it's so much easier to learn by doing, and that this offers a good just canvas for you to try whatever. And if you save it, you've got something. If you're thinking, I wonder how this would look on the video I'm about to release, you can try it on here first and see if it does what you expect. So
sure.
That's my tip of the day, planet Earth. So anyway, I've got it right here on the welcome slide because I think the sketch motion callouts, they're great in screencasts too for drawing circles or arrows or whatever, crossing something out. What I like them for the most is just on these standard PowerPoint or image-based portions of your video. So I think Shane mentioned earlier that there are some new top secret coming out, new sketch motion callouts, and I'll show you some of those in a minute, but I'm going to just use the standard ones right now. So I think I'll just do this on here. So basically you just find where in your video you want to put your call out, and then you select it. So this one, it looks like a scribble, so if I decided I didn't want to talk about Camtasia Studio 7, I want to talk about something else, it's just you drag it onto your timeline.
Welcome to Camtasia Studio 7. If you're new to Camtasia Studio,
that was another one that was already in there.
You're in the right place.
Down below here, you can see call out 1 and call out 2. So when you mouse over your call out portions, the little pop-up that comes up says what it is, so that you'll see that that's the sketch motion scribble. And this one was already in there. It's the rectangle. That's legacy. I was messing with this before we went live.
So one of the things I think that I remember when I first opened up Camtasia Studio, I saw these and I thought, wow, this is really great. I can do this kind of scribble thing or a box. But I was like, I don't want red. And it wasn't real clear to me, how do I get beyond just a red one? Is there a good way to, easy way to do that?
You've got, with all of your callouts, I've been using callouts. I think they're probably just like I love Snagit stamps, I love the callouts in Camtasia Studio because they're a way to add your own personality to your screencast without just relying on voice. And all of the callouts are customizable by color, as you say. I tend to just leave it red because it really pops unless your whole presentation is red. But if you wanted to make it a different color, there's the option to do so by clicking on border and just selecting the color. And you can do basically whatever you want. So if I wanted fuchsia, no problem. Hot pink callouts, yes. Yeah, so I tend to use the most, I would say. I use the circle and the rectangle and maybe the arrow. If I'm scribbling, I usually try to do something else. There are lots of places that fits, but my three most commonly used ones are the circle and the square because it really does. I mean, if I wanted to circle this, it really catches your attention, whereas if it was just a circle fading in, it would work. But this actually looks like somebody's drawing it. It really draws more attention than the other. Let me just move this over, kind of adjust the time. And so you can see it just pops right there.
If you're new to Camtasia Studio and you want to get
I
started,
know that Camtasia Studio in the education sector is used quite frequently with tablet PCs, and that people like to write and annotate as they go. This is a way to do that without a tablet PC that kind of gets to some of the same, theories.
So, okay, so I see a lot of times where we look at PowerPoint, right? There's a lot of examples of PowerPoint where you'd say, that's not really what we should do.
Right.
I could imagine that you could overuse sketch callouts. Do you have any guidelines for us? Like, when's a good time to use it? When maybe shouldn't I use it? Or
Yeah, I try not to use more than one in the same frame. So I wouldn't be like, I'm going to circle this and point at this and highlight this and scribble this out at the same time, because then you get really muddied and you don't know exactly what you're trying to do. As a rule of thumb, I try maybe to use, it depends on how highlighting heavy what I'm doing is, but I try to only use 2 or 3 per, 5-minute video. Otherwise, it really is just like, oh my gosh, my head hurts. Like when you go to old web pages and they have all those animated GIFs, like the mailbox, and then they've got the running guy, and then the under construction, and you just go, the same can be said with the sketch motion callout. So if there's a lot of stuff you have to highlight, you might consider using sketch motion for the really important stuff and then the highlighter tool for other stuff. Otherwise, you're cluttering it up, and there can be too much.
Okay. Any other features about the sketch motion callout that we should know about or be aware of that we could, maybe help to put this into effect or make it more useful? Or spice it up even a little bit?
Spice it up, yeah. I mean, I use the color changing sometimes, and I do adjust the size. So, if I've got this arrow, I can make it longer or bigger this way. Again, keeping in mind your basic design philosophy, because it's got to be really important if you're using an arrow that big. As I mentioned earlier, Shane Kelly, who works here, she'll be on later, made some new, she sat in her office and brainstormed what could possibly apply to people, wanting to use sketch motion colors who don't know how to create their own. So she's got arrows, crossouts, curved arrows. This is my favorite one. She was kind enough to share her office with me, and she turned around one day and she's like, what do you call that thing that's on the don't smoke signs, that's the line and the circle? And we couldn't think of anything other than do not. So, I think there's probably a technical term for it, and if anybody in the chat room knows, that'd be awesome. But so we call it the do not symbol.
Yeah, it doesn't have a name like ampersand for
right,
or something like that.
Exactly. So I can see where this one would be really helpful, and I'm planning to use this in some of the videos I'm making right now. So if you don't have a server connection, You know, that's kind of a cool way to say that instead of just typing out the text, you do not have a server connection. And as Shane said, those will be available soon. They're not yet, but you get a sneak peek here on 24 and 24. I guess just be creative. Whatever you can say with images, and whether they're sketch motion callouts or just, you know, pointing or changing color, visual is almost always better, or at least highlight your text with visual elements so that you can draw attention to what you want people to know.
Yeah, it seems like screen video goes by pretty quickly, and if you're trying to read something, and this has been my experience watching them, is that if I'm trying to read it, I can't keep up with the audio, what's on the screen, and the extra text that might be, you know, facilitating maybe my understanding a little bit greater. So it seems like a great way to do that.
Yep, and that's what's nice about these ones is the important stuff that motion calls attention, even with all the other stuff going on. So that's why it's also important not to overuse them.
Great. Any other tips or tricks or favorite features you want to talk about real quick before we wrap up?
Not that I can think about. I'll come busting in later. Like, hey, wait!
Great.
Let me tell you about this.
I finally have my favorite feature.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
And I'm in the chat room if you guys have questions or whatever. I'm trying to be in there most of the day. So, you know, go ahead and ask.
Well, and I think, you know, for those that are in the chat room that do want to talk, Jess is a great resource for technical things, instructional design, and has been working with professors and faculty for a long time. So if you're in that space, it could be a great resource for someone for you, who you could chat. So, well, we appreciate your time, Jess, and thank you for all for viewing. We're going to end this session, then we'll come back and answer some questions. So thanks.